Our very democracy was attacked, and the democracies in Europe are being attacked. We're in a global war of ideas of autocracy and authoritarianism against democracy. This is vital to our national security, that we understand exactly what happened here. And if anyone has been compromised, we need to know it. Okay. If anyone here has broken, and U.S. persons or campaign people or others have violated the law in collusion with the Russians, they ought to be brought to justice. So there.
What do we have hard right now about a possible Trump or Trump associate role in encouraging the Russians to interfere in our elections? What do you got hard?
Well, Chris, unfortunately, I can't go into the evidence that's being presented to the committee.
Do you have something hard that you can't reveal?
I can't reveal that, Chris.
You can't reveal that you have something.
You said hard.
This is now going on year number 2 of Robert Mueller's investigation. The president says that Robert Mueller has exceeded his remit. Has the special counsel exceeded his remit? And we are 1 year in. Why haven't we seen more conclusions?
Despite a year and a half of searching high and low, where exactly is this fictitious Russian collusion? Where is that? You've spent so much sweat equity, invested so many screaming graphics and time, and experts talking about everything from impeachment to collusion.
Does it matter?
Lots of folks.
That's why.
No, but where is it? And why?
You got to ask Mueller. He's not done with his investigation.
No, let's be fair. You weren't waiting for Mueller. CNN is not, respectfully, you've not waited for Bob Mueller to finish his investigation. You've been talking, because you've been talking about collusion and promising it to your viewers for a year and a half.
Robert Mueller has plans to move this thing, to skate it along, and perhaps come up with a report, not just on obstruction sometime in the next several months, but by the end of the year, in the fall, a report on collusion with the Russians involving the Trump people.
Well, you know, it's been said by friends of Robert Mueller that his favorite hobby is putting people in prison. And I don't think that he's going to have a problem at all if he has the evidence to bring at least part of the conspiracy charges involving people having contacts with known intelligence officers together, and to be able to, at least in the first phase, go after people who were the initial dirty tricks teams who may have worked with Russia to support the Trump election.
Into possible Trump campaign collusion with Russia is nearing an end. It's a move that's sure to infuriate the Democratic members of the House Intelligence Committee, who say there's a lot more work that needs to be done. Let's
We expect Republicans later today to announce that they are done with interviewing witnesses as part of this Russia investigation that has gone on for more than a year. This House Intelligence Committee has been riddled with partisan strife almost from the beginning over the role of the chairman, Devin Nunes, over these competing memos that later came out. Republicans say that this has been gone on long enough. They believe they've come to the consensus on their side that there's been no collusion between Trump associates and Russian officials as part of during the 2016 elections.
Day 417 of the Trump administration, and by one measure, the whole investigation appears to be over. Was about something from the Republicans on the committee. They didn't consult or tip off the Democrats that they were shutting this down. The investigation goes on, of course, in a number of other different forms, Mueller chief among them. But the Democrats were fuming tonight. The lead Democrat on the now closed investigation are learning new details about Robert Mueller's wide-ranging Russia investigation that has dominated the news cycle in recent weeks. Bloomberg reports it this way today. Special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into whether President Donald Trump obstructed justice is said to be close to completion, but he may set it aside while he finishes other key parts of his probe, such as possible collusion.
Think about the fact that the majority party in the House wants to dismiss this and pick siding with the boss, with the president, over a fuller investigation, over questioning witnesses more completely, because that would be the body, Brian, where you would have to bring an impeachment trial.
The public knows. We've seen evidence of Russian hacking, according to the intelligence community. We've seen the Russians dangling these emails, these damaging emails, before contacts with the Trump team or members of the Trump team. And we've seen members of the Trump team expressing willingness to get dirt on Hillary Clinton from the Russians, but we haven't seen the actual connection. We haven't seen an actual proof of cooperation and collusion. So what am I missing here?
Well, you know, I think you have to look at the pattern and the chronology.
Government
Have Democrats found any evidence of collusion?
Yes, we have. And, you can see the flaws in the report, and you'll see them more graphically when it's released. So there is evidence of collusion. There's very well maybe more evidence of collusion if the Republicans had been willing to try to find it.
This is a gross dereliction of duty by the Republican majority to prematurely put out this report. This report was cooked before it was ever baked. And it is a truly desperate attempt, I think, by the majority to undermine what is a very important function.
Well, deeply disappointing, but not completely surprising. They have maintained for some time, notwithstanding significant evidence that we have seen, that there was no collusion. This merely parrots what the president says, but it's not consistent with what we have seen.
Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee released the results of their investigation into Russian ties to the Trump campaign. Their verdict? No collusion. Committee Democrats released a rival report saying the Republicans refused to investigate all possible leads and accused them of a cover-up. Former FBI Director James Comey today said on NBC the House Intelligence Committee investigation that you worked on was just a wreck and the report was just a political document. How do you respond?
The witnesses we talked to, no one said that they had any evidence of collusion. And I participated in almost every one of those interviews, and I'm the one who asked the question. So from the standpoint of where these matters are best investigated, I don't think it's in Congress right now for myriad reasons. One of which, Margaret, is when you start with a conclusion, which Adam Schiff did in March of 2017, you have evidence of collusion, and then you never, ever share it with anyone. That investigation is not likely to turn out well.
You have asked Adam Schiff for specific evidence that he refused to hand to you?
He doesn't have it, so he can't give me what he doesn't have. Adam, before we ever started, said he had evidence of collusion, and this is exactly what he said, more than circumstantial but not direct. But there was no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that we found.
The bottom line, the Russians did commit active measures against our election in 2016, and we think they will do that in the future, Mr. Conaway said. But he added, we disagree with the narrative that they were trying to help Trump. Simply say, it's over, without even telling the minority side.
It's something we've never seen after an attack, right? Yeah. After Pearl Harbor, September 11th, the weapons of mass destruction debacle, we came together, we unified. This invites another attack.
Also learning this morning that Robert Mueller, the special counsel, may be ramping up the pressure on the president's legal team to try to get President Trump to do an interview, according to the Washington Post. Keep in mind that while the paper points out the president may not be a target of the investigation now, that could change depending on what is said if the president were to sit down with Mueller face to face. Mueller telling the president's lawyers they need that interview to finish a report about potential obstruction of justice and about Donald Trump's actions while in office, according to the Post. It could choose not to do it at all, or it could slow roll the process, right, which would, in effect, create this permanent hold. When it comes to policy toward Russia overall, there are this morning some very tough words coming from the current national security advisor who argues the U.S. has not done enough to punish the Kremlin. Listen.
Russia brazenly and implausibly denies its actions, and we have failed to impose sufficient costs. The Kremlin's confidence has grown as its agents conduct their sustained campaigns to undermine our confidence in ourselves and in one another.
But Mueller is still investigating the president for potential obstruction of justice.
Sources close to the investigation tell me up till now, there is no evidence that the president has actually committed a crime, so he's not considered an official target. But at the end of all of this, we may get more answers because Special Counsel Robert Mueller is expected to compile a full report with all of his investigation's findings. But what is not clear is whether that report will ever be made public.
There are also new developments in the Russia investigation. The Washington Post is reporting President Trump is not a criminal target of Special Counsel Robert Mueller at this time. But Mueller reportedly told the president's attorneys last month that he is continuing to investigate
the president sits there in the middle of this car wreck
as a person of interest to the grand jury. That's what he started out as, but there's no guarantee that if you start out as a subject, you don't end up as a target.
That he is not currently a target of the investigation. Sater, who is Russian-born, was brokering a deal to build a Trump Tower in Moscow, though the project stalled shortly before the 2016 primary.
Julian Assange has that proof, and I think he's going to furnish it to the American people.
His prediction came more than 2 months before WikiLeaks would release more than 20,000 pages of Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's emails stolen by Russia. Stone's radio appearance came the very same day he sent an email claiming he had dinner with WikiLeaks' Julian Assange the night before. This according to a source familiar with that email exchange.
Reporting that the president's attorneys have been told by the special counsel that he's under investigation but not yet a criminal target, which typically means investigators have concluded there's firm evidence that a suspect has committed a crime. So the president now faces a complicated situation and must decide whether he will submit to an interview with special counsel Bob Mueller. He's still under investigation, and that interview could possibly put Mr. Trump in jeopardy if the president's testimony does not line up with the facts of Mr. Mueller's probe.
Does not, and I repeat, not consider him a criminal target at this point.
Tomorrow marks 1 year since former FBI Director Robert Mueller was named special counsel to investigate if the Trump campaign coordinated with Russia's attempts to sway the 2016 election. But the Mueller investigation continues, and it is not the only investigation into Russia and Trump campaign actions.
Senate Intelligence Committee has just released its report on Russian interference in the 2016 presidential elections here in the United States and the assessment from the U.S. intelligence community. Committee Chairman Richard Burr says this, and remember, he's a Republican, and I'm quoting him now. "There is no doubt Russia undertook an unprecedented effort to interfere with our 2016 election."
Conclusions couldn't be more different from the Senate Intelligence Committee compared to the House Intelligence Committee, both Republican-led, Manu.
Yeah, that's right. The leaders of the Senate Intelligence Committee say that the intelligence community's assessment from 2017 that Vladimir Putin orchestrated a cyber campaign with the intention of helping Donald Trump win the presidency is accurate. At least
Catherine, the Russians tried to elect Donald Trump president. It's been proven. The big picture is that a foreign hostile power was trying to interfere in our democracy, in our presidential election.
Sarah, about possible indictment of Roger Stone.
Well, look, we're obviously just days away from the midterm, so we're not necessarily expecting any big announcements to come before then. But afterwards, we don't know. And, when they have an indictment, we will all find out about it, but not until they want us to.
Mueller's team prepares new plea deals, indictments, and his final report. Is Mueller's next move imminent?
But what I am getting is that this is all building up to the Mueller report and raising expectations of a bombshell report. And there have been expectations that have been building, of course, for over a year on this. But people who are closest to what Mueller has been doing, who have interacted with the special counsel, caution me that this report is almost certain to be anticlimactic. That if you look at what the FBI was investigating in that New York Times report, you look at what they were investigating, Mueller did not go anywhere with that investigation. We have seen nothing from Mueller on the central question of, was there any coordination, collusion with the Russians in the effort to meddle in the election?
This one seems to be winding down. What Burr told me in this investigation is that he and his staff have reached a point where they're not uncovering new questions, and they may be reaching an endpoint. He kind of joked that they assume every Russian that they talk to is tied to the intelligence community there. He said, a whole lot of people seem to be on the payroll of this one billionaire, Oleg Deripaska. And because those relationships are so interconnected, a lot of them are long-standing, a lot of them have to do with business interests, they're pre-existing. So
ultimately, does the senator believe that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia during the 2016 election?
So the short answer is no. He personally does not believe that the committee has uncovered any evidence of collusion. What he told me is that if we write a report based on the facts that we have today, then we don't have anything to suggest that there was collusion by the Trump campaign and Russia.
After 2 years and interviewing more than 200 witnesses,
The Senate Intelligence Committee has not uncovered any direct evidence of a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. That's according to sources on both the Republican and the Democratic side of the aisle, Hallie. But this is a bipartisan investigation, and what I found is that the Democrats don't dispute that characterization.
Would you agree that a lot of what's in the Steele dossier has been at least somewhat vindicated? Would you agree with that assessment?
No.
You would not?
No.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
I think as we wrote in the book, and by the way, it's the book is by myself and David Korn. We wrote it together. I think in broad strokes, Christopher Steele was clearly on to something. When you actually get into the details of the Steele dossier, the specific allegations, we have not seen the evidence to support them. And in fact, there's good grounds to think that some of the more sensational allegations will never be proven and are likely false. I think it's a mixed record at best at this point. Things could change. Mueller may yet produce evidence that changes this calculation, but based on the public record at this point, I have to say that most of the specific allegations have not been borne out.
We're trying to make it clear and compulsory so that William Barr is not the judge. The statute requires a report to be done, and that report to be disclosed directly to Congress, and no basis for concealing or censoring that report. The public has a right to know. It's a very simple principle. The public paid a lot of money for this report. They deserve the results. And
when do you expect to see the special counsel's report?
Within a month, if we see it. I don't care what the report says. We paid $25 million, maybe $35 million to do it, and the public ought to know what their $25 or $35 million bought.
Could we finally be approaching the end game in the Mueller investigation?
Once these answers are put in, Mueller could go ahead and issue a report.
After a flurry of early indictments and then the calm before the midterms, all eyes are again focused on Robert Mueller and his investigation that's now been underway 18 months. It's prompting some journalists to muse the end of the investigation must be near.
No, another storm coming, because Robert Mueller's report may be delivered as early as next week. And we'll see. We'll see. Don't know. We don't know. And it's all lies. All of it. All of it.
There is word that special counsel Robert Mueller may be ready to submit his findings in the Russia investigation. Various news organizations are reporting it could happen next week. Newly sworn-in Attorney General William Barr will review Mueller's work and submit his own summary to Congress.
I mean, that really comes down to what is in this report, right? Because if there's something that is very bad for the president, it would necessitate actually more of a public airing or a congressional airing, right?
That's the challenge for Barr, is figuring out exactly how to slice it and dice it and what to give Congress. And
this is the clearest indication to us that Mueller is done, and that most of the investigative steps that he undertook are now complete. There are some indications that we haven't seen the grand jury, the Mueller grand jury that's been overseeing this investigation, has not been seen since Roger Stone was indicted, so that's about a month ago. We've seen other signs that things may be wrapping up at Mueller's office. And that is the most important thing, that after all this time, we're all going to want answers. People are going to want to know what exactly went on here. And I think everyone's been cautioning us that we may not get all the answers we want, that this report may not contain the answers that people are looking for.
Keep in mind, there's a counterintelligence aspect to this that may be going on for years and years, and we may never see, simply because they want to know what the Russians are still up to.
And I just want to loop in our viewers again real quick, because the Mueller report, clearest indications yet that they're preparing at the DOJ to receive this as early as next week. The clearest indication that this is wrapping up.
A lingering problem for him out of New York, out of the Southern District of New York. And that is one of the things that concerns the president and the president's people much more, people close to him, than this Mueller investigation.
As I mentioned, the clues. We're interested in the evidence, not the rumors.
You can imagine how Mueller feels searching through the same stuff about what is real and what is, perhaps exaggerated.
Probe.